Hello everybody, welcome to the County Seat. I'm your host Chad Booth. Today we have a special County Seat program for you. It's a one-on-one conversation today, and joining us is the State Director for the Bureau of Land Management, Juan Palma. We're glad you could make time in your schedule.
My pleasure.
I'm going to just jump right into it off the top here and talk about the buzz that's been out there lately. And of course, a couple of months ago, we were very surprised, or it seemed like a surprise, when there was a letter to the President about creating a new national monument here in the state. And it got people quite agitated. So what's your take from your seat on that?
Yeah, I actually was also surprised when I saw the letter myself. So I joined the crowd that was a little bit surprised. But I think you're referring to, Chad, to the Canyonlands proposal by industry and others. I can only tell you that I'm not aware of a proposal that the BLM has put forward, but it certainly is a citizen's proposal. And that's about the extent of my knowledge on that topic. I'm not aware of anything that's eminent that's coming down, but again, citizens certainly have a right to ask their government officials to take a look at their proposal, and this is what this is all about.
So you're kind of like okay, we'll believe it when we see it approach. Is that the sort of thing that...
No, well, certainly this is a serious proposal, and I think that this got some merit. But as far as a process for the BLM, we don't really have one that is going on right now. My philosophical viewpoint, that in order for this sort of designations, whether it's monuments, they really need to be worked from the ground up, so they can be supported from all citizens, from all walks of life. And I think those are the ways that we can be able to sustain, whether it be a national monument, whether it be other designation. Philosophically, I believe that we need to be able to work with all citizens of all walks of life to be able to arrive at a designation that makes sense to all the people involved. And that's what we're working on here in Utah. We're working with a lot of citizens on those kinds of proposals, and I know they're more involved than I am, because it really is counties that are involved in proposing, like they've done in Washington County Lands Bill, from the county up.
And there are other counties that are working on it. Well, let's move our conversation to land planning, because I think of all the conversations that come out in regards to the Bureau of Land Management, that is obviously the number one issue that constantly comes along, and it would seem like it's just a never-ending process of always having to go back and defend a use or propose a new use. And so, what is your general take on land planning and its current state of affairs in Utah?
Well, that's a good question. And from the BLM, what we do is planning at a scale where we plan as to what land allocations will be allocated for. For example, 100,000 acres are allocated for recreational activities, 100,000 acres are allocated for grazing, 100,000 acres are dedicated for mining, and so on and so forth. So planning at that scale is about allocation of land for certain purposes. And so that's what we do in our resource management plans. We actually allocate land for certain purposes, and that's really important. The other things that we do in those land management planning is that some local jurisdictions, whether it be counties or the state, often have issues with, there may be sage grouse, there may be other kinds of issues that they may need to resolve. And so a lot of those issues are resolved on BLM lands. Right now in Iron County, as an example, we're working with the county officials and others to address the question of what do we do with prairie dogs, and how is it that the BLM can play a role to help those counties. So land management planning is more than just us planning for the sake of the BLM. We actually are planning to, in conjunction with other local jurisdictions, to help them achieve the objectives they need to achieve. In the case of Iron County, how do we deal with prairie dogs?
I do hear this from time to time. People come out and say, the BLM just ignores the counties in the land planning process, and these RMPs don't reflect what the local counties have opted for or shot for in their county planning. What's your answer to that?
One of the things that we have in our planning process is that we have cooperators, and we always invite counties and other entities to join us as cooperators. And I can tell you that every situation of planning that we're doing in Utah, we've asked the counties and others to join us as cooperators, and they have. As cooperators, they have an ability to then let us know what their concerns are.
And I think some of the complaints or concerns come from the fact that counties are charged with developing land use planning under state statute. And some of the other cooperators that may be involved don't really have what they consider to be as important or illegal of a standing in making those land use planning decisions as a county does. And so that would be another question I would throw back to the BLM.
One of the things that we have from federal lands is that we have to be able to cooperate and coordinate and collaborate with many individuals. Certainly the counties and others have a special role as cooperators, but as federal lands, we have to also include many, many more constituencies. And those constituents may be here in Utah, or they may be even away from Utah. And by rule and regulation, we, the BLM, have to consider the thoughts that come from other individuals. I know that what I'm describing right now may be contradictory with some local citizens may feel, which is that they know best what needs to happen in those landscapes. But we, the BLM, have to listen to all sides, including those sides that may be far away from here in Utah, who have a concern of how we manage those BLM lands. That may be the difference that some citizens feel, that we, the BLM, may not be listening solely to the counties, but by rule we have to listen to all individuals, not just the counties.
This different understanding of vision is probably the genesis of House Bill 148, which is still a very popular topic, and from what I understand will again be a topic in the state legislature. Is that something that the BLM has a beat on or a focus on at this point?
You know, I know that House Bill 148, a lot of citizens are concerned about that, and other citizens, like the idea. From my perspective, that is a topic that is certainly above my head in terms of the director of the BLM here in Utah. It certainly has political implications, legal implications. From my perspective, and I told my staff on the BLM here in Utah, is that we're going to continue to serve the citizens until such time as something is directed to me from other parties or levels of the organization. We're going to continue to manage the land, because this really is not something that we're implementing right now in Utah BLM.
When we come back, I'd like to talk about energy development.
Okay.
And we'll be back with the county seat in just a minute.
Good morning. If you're just getting up, it's a cold one out there today. Lots of snow and the commute is ugly.
Grief.
Don't you wish that you were somewhere else? Somewhere else?
Escape from your world and find another in Kanab, the perfect destination for adventure, history, and exploration that can be enjoyed any time of the year. Don't let Mother Nature keep you holed up all winter when you can escape anytime and enjoy the best that Utah has to offer. Come to Kanab and see what we mean.
Almost 45% of the oil produced in Utah, 7.8 million barrels, comes from Duchesne County. That oil feeds our state economy, provides job growth, and supports local business. Here in Duchesne County, we're working to make Utah an economic, cultural, and technological leader. Whether you're here for business or pleasure, Duchesne County will welcome you with open arms and invite you to explore all the beauty of the Uinta Mountains. Duchesne County, close enough for business, far enough to get away.
What do you picture when you hear Rich County, Utah? Bear Lake adventure, snowmobile action, pristine skiing, spectacular solitude. Well, if that isn't what first came to mind, then you just don't know Rich County. The Bear Lake Monster Polar Plunge, snowmobiling Monte Cristo, ice fishing Bear Lake, skiing the backcountry, fishing at the Cisco Disco. Come and find out what you never knew you were missing. Rich County, Utah.
How would you spend an extra day in Utah Valley? Stay one more day. Visit utahvalley.com to make reservations. Utah Valley. Bring everyone together.
Welcome back to the county seat. We've been talking with Juan Palma, the state director of the Bureau of Land Management, and a one-on-one conversation. Director Palma, I would like to address energy. We have almost every day in the paper, there is something about oil shale, tar sands, natural gas, pipelines, wind energy, right-of-ways, and it seems like most all of it falls right in the lap of the BLM. What is the status of energy and permits and things like that right now in the state of Utah?
Well, clearly, the BLM has a large portfolio, and that includes multiple use of many, many uses of the BLM lands. And one of those is energy, both renewable energy, but as well as fossil fuel energy. we, the BLM here in Utah, are actively involved in both sides, both the renewable side, but as well as the fossil fuel. As it relates to oil and gas, I can tell you that this year, in this past year, the BLM here in Utah is probably in the forefront of energy production in the whole entire BLM all across the country. In fact, our numbers show that our level of permitted activities as it relates to oil and gas has really spiked. We are probably the highest in the whole country when it comes to renewable, renewable as well, but also energy as it relates to oil and gas.
Well, this is a very interesting point because it seems like it was only a year ago that the line that we were hearing from all kinds of sectors is that permits, the issuance of permits to drill and explore were at the lowest they'd been in years. And the graphs kind of show that, but it seems to have rebounded a lot. What is that? Is that a political change of climate, or is that something else?
Well, there's several things that why our ability to drill today is higher than it's been for a while, and that is that our resource management plants, where we're in production, in development for over the last few years, at least 7 years, but they were completed in 2008. We're beginning to implement those now. So that's one reason. The implementation of the resource management plants has allowed us the ability to increase our production. The other thing is that it's been a focus of ours. When I first came to Utah in 2010, one of the emphasis that I said is we want to make sure that when it relates to real financial development, for the real financial input, it occurs at the application for drilling process, at the drilling process where the real financials occur. And we were a little bit low. And so I put emphasis in the organization that we needed to increase our ability to permit the drilling in the basin, and that has happened since now. A third item that has happened is that we've developed good relationships with our partners, such as the EPA. EPA has a great role with us, and other various partners that we have in the federal family, as well as the state. I'm very confident that those partnerships allow us to move forward, allow us to permit. As it relates to air quality, other issues, the EPA plays a key role. I've personally have traveled to Denver many times, and also the director of the EPA has come here to Utah many times, Mr. Jim Martin. All of those partnerships, I think, allow us to move forward. Rather than pulling the wagon in different directions, we're all trying to pull the wagon in the same direction. And that's what I'm asking some of our state partners to do as well. We'd be better served to be able to collaboratively pull the wagon in the same direction, all of us. And I think that's where we're going to move forward that way.
There has been some complaint that I've heard about that you know, if you go through if you take a tract to BLM land, that the permitting process is 3 or 4 years before you actually can start production, and if they go to state trust lands, it's 45 or 60 days. Is that a valid argument from your perspective?
You know, there could be some valid argument to that. We in the Bureau of Land Management have to comply with certain policies like the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA for short, and that takes a little longer because there's public input that has to happen. But we feel that at the end of the day, when we start, we do it smart from the start. If we do this development from the start, we're smart, all together, working together, we believe that at the end of the day, all of us will be served better, and that the citizens as well as the companies, one of the things that I've often asked is we want certainty. And by going through this process, even though it may take a little longer, they can have certainty that they can develop these parcels at the end of the day.
Well, just a little bit of news in the paper this morning about tar sands. And one of the companies that's working is getting ready to start the development of tar sands. Do you see a lot of potential for that?
You know, the technology is improving, and I am convinced that at some point in time the technology will be there for tar sands oil shale. And what we're working on right now is working with companies to continue to do research and development on this, which can certainly be in the future a production of energy. And so we're going to work with those companies, and we're going to work with other entities to make sure that that happens, the research and development.
Let's talk about the West Desert.
Well, we have several things in the West Desert, but including geothermal, and more exploration of geothermal, you know, where the lava is closer to the ground, we can heat the water, but also wind energy as well as solar energy. In order for us to really get into both geothermal, renewable as far as wind and solar, we're going to have to do some planning, amend our plans. Some of those plans are quite old. In fact, back into the 80s and 90s, or even older than that. So in order for us to really achieve the mission that we're trying to achieve on renewable energy, we're going to have to amend our West Desert plans. But right now we can't, because we feel we have a constraint on planning on the West Desert District.
How so?
It was some years back, when there was a discussion about possible nuclear repository on the West Desert, and all of that got complicated. So the genesis of this inability to plan on the West Desert really goes back to the roots of that conversation.
Now, are you referring to the Congressman Hansen's effort in the legislature to basically block any kind of new development out there?
It goes back to that. And so we feel that given that we move forward in time and that we, the BLM and others, are interested in doing some more work, not only on renewable energy, but potash is also a big topic on the West Desert. There's many other topics on the West Desert that we need to take a look at. But in order to do that, we're going to have to amend our plans. And so I'm going to ask a little help from some of our congressional delegations and others to help me with in terms of our ability to continue to plan in the West Desert District for not only renewable energy, but other kinds of energy like potash and other kinds of things that we need to do.
Okay, this is a good place to take a break, and I'm going to follow up with that question and ask how people can help when we come back.
Yeah.
Stay with us. We'll be back with the county seat. Director Palma from the Bureau of Land Management is our guest today. We'll be right back.
So what brings you to St. George?
Business meeting.
Staying long?
Just here for the day, quick in and out. On second thought. Holy.
We'd like to invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy your 45-minute flight to Salt Lake.
I should have booked a weekend.
Bring your family and friends and come celebrate the retreat of winter with thousands of snow geese as they stop in Delta, Utah on their migration north. Pick your adventure in Millard County.
The State of Utah School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration. SITLA manages 3.5 million acres of Utah lands with the express purpose of furthering the education of Utah students while promoting local industry, oil and gas, even residential development, all at the same time. Through the careful use of trust lands, we distributed more than $22 million to Utah schools last year. The State of Utah School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration, building the state's permanent school fund.
Let's be honest, you don't know much about Beaver County. Well, let me tell you about it. It's the birthplace of outlaw Butch Cassidy and inventor Philo T. Farnsworth. Some of the best skiing in Utah is at Eagle Point. You've got camping, Canyon Breeze Golf Course, Crusher and the Tushers, Beaver Territorial Courthouse, snowmobiling, renewable energy, Pioneer Car Show, Squeaky Cheese, Ghost Towns to explore, best water in the country, Paiute ATV trails, Old Frisco Kilns, horse racing, hunting, fishing, and it's a good place to live. Beaver County, mountains of fun. I could tell you more, but why don't you come and see it for yourself?
Welcome back to the county seat. Our topic today is basically all the topics that the BLM engages in. As our guest is Director Juan Palma from the State Office of the BLM. Thank you again for spending some time with us. We were talking about the fact that the West Desert area is kind of off limits to new plan modifications because of old legislation. If people want to see new development and potential energy and potash and other things that can be of economic value to the state, how do they help the BLM?
Well, I think at a fundamental level, Jed, just being informed. Just being informed of what exactly is the issue, how might they be engaged. And then the second way that people can help is that some of these issues are resolvable at the delegation level. And so I'm going to be visiting with them about this topic as well. How can they help? And so I'll be briefing them more fully on this topic in the coming weeks and months to come.
If people are interested in that kind of development, then would their input to our federal delegation help you in your task?
That certainly would help, and we intend to inform all of the parties and principals, very specifically, what is the issue? What is it that we're trying to resolve? And I can tell you right now that what we're trying to resolve is to really do our planning on the West Desert that we need to do. Currently, we're doing planning on the Cedar City Field Office, and we want to be able to move next up to the West Desert. So my discussions is, as I'm thinking over the next year, 18 months, we want to be able to move up, and that's why we're talking about this topic right now.
Okay, well, let's turn our attention to another topic that has rattled people around the state. That's sage grouse. to many people we run across, it's like they're going to take away, grouping the Fish and Wildlife Service and the BLM all together in one group, are planning to take over public lands and shut down grazing, and the impression I get is from people that they think you guys just think that this is sliced bread. So what is the BLM's position on that?
We were charged to develop some planning, long-range planning for sage grouse, and it relates to habitat because really that's where our domain is, the BLM. And that's what we're engaged in right now. What is it that we, the BLM, not only here in Utah, but in Wyoming and Idaho and other parts of the country, what can we do to conserve sage-grouse habitat? And this is where we're embarked in right now. And this planning is going to involve a lot of collaborators, a lot of citizens, an awful lot of cooperators, and many other people as we develop the alternatives for sage-grouse. But we're going to continue to have, and I think that we're going to find ways that we can continue to do the activities we've done in the past. And so that's what we focus on right now, the planning part of it.
If there were a T&E or a threatened and endangered species categorization added to sage grouse, would that be a good move in part of the BLM or a bad move?
The only ones that can actually make that call is the Fish and Wildlife Service, whether a particular candidate species gets listed or not. And certainly the sage grouse has been petitioned to be listed. The Fish and Wildlife Service has said that it's warranted but precluded because of other priorities that exist right now. But if they were to be listed, I think that all of us would live in a whole different world. Not only us, the BLM, who are faced with many projects and permits, but also the citizens that use the BLM lands. So I think that it behooves us all to be able to develop a plan that the Fish and Wildlife Service can say that will mitigate any impacts of sage grouse. And that's what we BLM in Utah intend to do. We intend to really work together to make that happen.
So a threatened and endangered categorization of sage grouse would actually tie your hands to a lot of the things you feel you should be able to do.
Oh, by far. By far. It would be more complicated. Our world would be more complicated. And we want to avoid that if at all possible. So our goal is to not be listed.
What is your prognosis? I know the counties have been very actively engaged in it. I know private ranchers, a lot of users. What is your prognosis very quickly?
I would think that if we continue to work together, us, the federal family, the state, which I'm happy to report that we're working very close with Kathleen Clark and others, and the counties as we are right now, I foresee that if we work as we are now, it cannot be but to be good for not only all of us, but sage grouse as well.
We were going to take a break right now. We're with Director Juan Palma, State Director of the Bureau of Land Management in Utah. We'll take a commercial break. We'll be right back here on the county seat.
Industry is the symbol of Utah. Beauty is what makes it unique. Nowhere else are these two qualities exemplified, like in Uinta County. Oil and gas extraction, pioneer history, the spirit of hard work and integrity that feed our state. Built in the middle of the most spectacular backdrop in the West, isn't it time you found the balance you've been looking for? Uinta County, Utah, where industry meets inspiration.
I remember the first time that our family found that canyon road. I thought, here we go again, another road to nowhere. But boy, was I wrong. It was 9 Mile Canyon, and what we saw was more than I could ever have expected. At the end of the day, my son asked,
Mom, can we come back here again?
That was all I needed to hear.
What happens in Utah's Castle Country stays with you. Find out more at castlecountry.com.
Along Interstate 70 and Highway 89 is an area that is rich with high mountain peaks, vast forests, lakes, streams, historical sites, and a climate that is perfect for outdoor adventures, no matter what the season. Whether you visit Sevier County to catch one of the many celebrations, experience a country-style county fair, or be part of various concerts, sports, or equestrian events, you will be greeted by local residents with a smile and a welcoming hand. In the center of it all, Sevier County.
Welcome back to the county seat. We are having a one-on-one conversation today with Director Juan Palma from the State Office of the BLM. Director Palma, the President made a pretty big pitch about getting youth off the couch and reconnecting with the outdoors. How does that translate to the State Office of the BLM these days?
I really do think that the Secretary's initiative that goes along with youth is America's Great Outdoors. And that's the ability to connect our youth with the outdoors. There's something that happens to all of us when we connect to the outdoors. And so recreation is one of those emphases that we have here in Utah. To be able to not only connect our youth to the recreation side, to the various programs that we have, but also to be able to connect our citizens to our very recreation activities that we have across the state. It's been a priority of the Secretary Salazar, since he came into office 4 years ago, Secretary Salazar, youth, and be able to hire youth to the BLM and to the Department of Interior. I can tell you that here in Utah, we have hired 164 youth this past year across Utah BLM in the various offices that we have. I think that's a good approach. I support that. In fact, I put an emphasis on youth as the director of the BLM here in Utah.
What kind of jobs do these kids do for the BLM?
They do all kinds. You can imagine they all go into, many are going to college, archaeologists, wildlife biologists. In fact, I hired two that work for me from the law school here at University of Utah. So all kinds of degrees that they have. And they bring their skill sets to the BLM during the summer. And many of those are being hired permanently for the BLM here in Utah. And we think, I believe, that by hiring youth that have been here in Utah for generations, they can better understand how to manage the lands just from their perspective as citizens.
Do you think there's enough land in your 22 million acres to be able to accommodate the different sorts of recreation?
You know, there's lands, for example, you take Little Sahara, where I've been out there myself in Little Sahara, and many, many other places like Little Sahara, where you can accommodate the needs of the OHV community, and you see that a lot. So we have places like Little Sahara. You have other places where perhaps a more natural scenic beauty is appropriate from the BLM side, and we certainly have those, all the way from the National Monument down in Escalante National Monument, and all the way up to the San Rafael Swell, which many of us have been there. What a magnificent place. So I think that we do have in the BLM a large enough portfolio within our 23 million acres of land to accommodate most, if not all, of those citizens that have these needs. Obviously, we cannot accommodate every single possibility, but we can certainly accommodate many of those uses on the BLM land.
So the peoples on those extremes should be rest assured that you're looking out for their interests along with everybody else's?
I think it's a question of balance. It's a question of how we balance all of our resources that we have. And that's what we in the BLM are working hard to do, to balance all of our resources. Some uses are appropriate in some lands, and some uses are not appropriate in other pieces of land. And so that's what we're working towards, is to find the balance. It isn't the economy against the environment or the environment against the economy. It is the economy and the environment working together. That's where we need to go here in Utah and us in the BLM.
Last question for you. Do you have a pretty good working relationship with Governor Herbert?
I feel very comfortable. Governor Gary Herbert and I visit on a regular basis, and I feel comfortable. There's several initiatives that he's working on. The recreation initiative is in play right now. We have and we have members of the BLM. We have our fire initiative going on for catastrophic fires. I'm a member of that, so I feel comfortable working on the initiatives from the governor's perspective.
Thank you for tuning into the County Seat. If you stayed with us through this whole program, then you are one of those people that we talk about that understands that local government is where your life happens. Stay tuned to the County Seat. Be sure to join us on our website. Thanks for joining us. We'll look for you next week.